Welcome to the ODDSBREAKER'S #1 place for shared, sharp betting information.
Welcome back to podcast 43 of 2021. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can follow me on Twitter at OBKiev. Follow us at the ODDSBREAKERS. Follow us on social media / the ODDSBREAKERS. This episode is being brought to you by mybookie.ag. For a 50% sign-up bonus, please visit mybookie and use the promo code The ODDSBREAKERS. Terms, conditions, and location apply. If you'd like to help us out with our costs, sponsor the website and podcast, we'd love to help you out. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com, click shop, and become a member. For $24.99 a month, you can get my plays and premium plays before the line moves. If nothing else, please visit theoddsbreakers.com and become a free picks newsletter subscriber. We have a great show for you today, my friends. We can't just keep blowing college football off. So we're bringing one of the best that we know, a man that's been on the podcast for about 5 years now, Mr. Brian Edwards from Major Wager and BrianEdwardsSports.com and Vegas Insider. Going to talk a little pigskin with him, some rule changes, the whole likeness deal, how that might affect some things, as well as some UFC 264. Can't wait to get into some of that. Before he comes on, huge shout out to Chris Farley, Patrick Gates, and Nick Hubb from theoddsbreakers.com. They are doing a fantastic job cranking out content every single day and continuing to bring value to the website. So huge shout out to those guys. If you don't already, please follow them on Twitter. Man, has the NBA gotten a little crazy lately, with Atlanta Hawks' Trae Young getting injured and now Giannis with the knee injury there. Man, it's like you're going to see the second-tier guys have to battle it out in this NBA basketball playoffs here with those two teams. I mean, I have zero faith that Giannis is going to play next game. That looked pretty bad. I guess x-rays were negative, but dude, he's limping. And Trae Young is probably very questionable right now. I would wonder if it's going to be a free roll, almost betting Atlanta right now. And maybe Brian Edwards will know a little bit more about that, being that he's such an NBA and avid Atlanta Hawks fan. So we'll talk to Brian about that as well. If you guys have any questions for any games, fights, sports coming up, please feel free to tweet us at theoddsbreakers.com. If you want us to answer a question on the podcast, we are more than happy to do that as well. We are here for you in the ultimate goal to break the books. Well, we have a lot to talk about today, and me and Brian can get a little long-winded. So without further ado, let's get Brian on the show. Brian Edwards from Major Wager. Now, I'm very excited to welcome back a longtime friend of the show. You've heard him on many sports and podcast shows across the country. You can find some of his work at VegasInsider.com and Major Wager. I'm really happy to welcome back Mr. Brian Edwards from BrianEdwardsSports.com and MajorWager.com. You can follow him on Twitter at VegasBEdwards. Brian, man, the NBA season is winding down. College football's in the horizon. How the hell are you doing?
What's happening, Kiev, man? Thanks for having me. I'm doing great. You know, the only other time in my 46-year existence that the Hawks were in the East Conference Finals, we were getting swept by LeBron and that horse shit call, and Deladova took Horford's legs out, and Horford just was in midair and just decided to give him a little forearm shiver and got flipping ejected for it. And now this time we're 2-2. So and I bet in April I got some Hawks at 100-1, and also have some 35-1 to win the East. So I'm a happy man.
Well, dude, you're sitting pretty. I mean, I don't know if you want to chop that a little bit and hedgy heads.
Oh, I'm chopping it now. Have you seen the new series price today?
No, I didn't look at the series price because I'm not invested like you are. I didn't really. I didn't partake.
One of my accounts has the new series price minus 110. on Milwaukee.
Ooh, well, Giannis, man, that must have some green must have flashed in your eyes a little bit when he unfortunately took that spill. No, it's not something you want to see, of course, but it's not your fault. You're holding a 35 and 100 to 1 ticket here, right?
Sure. Well, I don't know if you saw Woj's report in the last hour, but there's no structural damage. But it's still a hyperextended knee. I still don't think he's playing the next game or two.
Yeah, I don't think
if he does, he's going to be compromised. He's not going to be.
He is not playing the next game. No chance in hell. I think Trae Young has a shot to play here. You know, I mean, I think he tried to go. I don't know if they injected him or anything. But, you know, I mean, he made an effort. But you know what? The team, I bet ATL the first half. I bet under Middleton, and I bet the under. Had a great night last night with the Hawks. I really did think Trae Young was going to play, but as soon as he was announced out, I still felt okay about my +4 ticket because I'm like, this team's going to step it up. 62% against the spread at home, you know? So.
Well, we had already beaten them without Young. We beat them in the regular season, beat them 111 to 104 without Young. And, I mean, if you look back on the Hawks, I mean, obviously I'm a fan, so I'm way more dialed into them than everybody else. But, okay, by the way, I just Googled how long does a hyperextended knee keep you out, and it says 2 to 4 weeks.
That's what I thought he'd be questionable if they made the finals, man. I don't think he's coming back for this series, and I'll tell you right now.
I don't think he's coming back the whole year. Well, I think we're going to win the series now. Hopefully,
I think taking Atlanta, and I'm going to ask you. You're more NBA than me, but I'm thinking Atlanta's almost a free roll at was it plus? Is it close to even money right now?
You're talking about on the series or for tomorrow night's game?
Tomorrow night's game.
Milwaukee's -2 at most books.
-2. Okay, it's pretty close. So you got almost a free roll here at +2. Giannis is announced out. That thing goes down. You know, I cannot see Giannis come back at all. So
well, I was listening to Doug Kazarian and Jeff Sherman. Jeff being one of the top guys on Jay Cornigate's staff at the Westgate. I was listening to the Daily Wager pod while I was in my car earlier, and Jeff said that they handicapped it or put the line out with the assumption that Giannis is definitely out. So he actually said that if Trae is out, it might go up to 3.5 or 4. And if Trae plays, it may go down to 1 or pick him. So I don't think there's going to be any, the line is built in Giannis out.
Okay. And
I mean, the market determines all that.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. I'm still thinking when he's fully announced out, it moves. Doug can say what he wants, but in my opinion, that changes. Especially, I think Trae gets announced back into. I don't know. I'm crossing my fingers for the kid, and he's played through some tough injuries before, so.
Well, the big thing is Bogdanovich has been hurt since the Game 5 of Philadelphia, and he's gutted it out and played horrible. But even though he went 3 of 16 Sunday night in Game 4 or Game 3, you could tell he looked a lot better. And that's why I was tweeting yesterday that I think Bogdanovich is going to have a big game tonight. Tonight being last night. And but just because he was getting better lift on his jumper, I mean, he was just playing one leg there for like 3 or 4 games. And so now that Bogdanovich's last 6 to 8 weeks of the season was averaging 20, 22 points per game. And then he kind of slumped mid-Philly series, and then he hurt his knee. But now he looks like he's close to 100% now, so that's a big deal.
Are you playing it? Do you have any plays in mind for tomorrow? Or it's tonight when people get the podcast?
Well, like I said, man, I've got those plays. So, like, you know what I mean? I'm just – when I've got – one account 20 to win 2,000 on Atlanta to win it all, and when I've got on another account 20 to win 1,400 for them to win it all, and then I've got I think it's 25 to win 750 on the East. There's no reason for me to be thinking about this specific game. I'm thinking about the series. You know what I mean?
Come on, man. Ignore all that great stuff you have in your pocket. We're talking game to game here, Brian. Come on, man.
I've got a different mindset than normal right now. It was so hard to say because not only Trae, I mean, Capella took that brutal elbow to the eye. I mean, I'm just hoping he didn't have a broken orbital bone. I've been away from the computer for a while. I don't know if there's been any updates on Capella yet. So I'm worried about him and Trey, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And being a fan.
But we did get Reddish back, and Reddish looks like he's 100%. And you know, he's a great defender like DeAndre Hunter, and hell, he made a couple threes last night. So Reddish being back is huge. You know, Atlanta's dealt with these damn injuries all year long. I mean, they've had 2, 3, 4 guys out for extended periods, big chunks of the season.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Well, hey, more information is going to come out, and maybe Brian will tweet something out when the time comes. So we'll check that out. But we have a little pigskin to talk about, Brian, and that's what me and you like to talk about usually when you come on the pod. Lots of changes have happened here, and the biggest one so far, the Supreme Court announcing that these athletes can use their likeness to make money in college sports. They 9-0 unanimous vote to do this. What are your thoughts on this as a whole, and was this long overdue?
Oh God, so long overdue. So long overdue. Yeah, man, I'm glad that the athletes are now going to be able to make a little coin. It's insane. It's insane how all these billions that have been made over the decades and they get nothing. So yeah, I'm stoked. They deserve. Now I don't really know how fair it's going to be, you know, for the for like, you know, men's baseball compared to football and basketball or you know, and the women's, et cetera. I haven't read a whole lot about it. I don't know, but just the premise that the kids are going to be getting paid now is long overdue. I mean, Spurrier was talking about this stuff in the 90s, how it was a travesty that the coaches get so much money, and these bowl executives that have been stuffing their wallets for decades.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, I'm stoked for the athletes.
No doubt. I mean, massive monopoly going on. Yeah, I mean, long overdue. And the thing is that they need to protect themselves. They shouldn't have had the Supreme Court have to do this, because you're looking at the NBA. They're with the G League and everything. I only seen that getting bigger. I mean, the Euro leagues are taking kids, you know, rather than people going to college when they have to worry about a GPA, they have to worry about being in class. Why don't I just take a year and go play some basketball? And you know that Adam Silver's going to change it back to 18 anyway, right? So I think college has to protect themselves. They have. You want this to be competitive. You don't want to watch bad football all the time. You know, you don't want to watch bad basketball. I think it was extremely important that they did this anyway. My problem with the way they're doing it is that it's an absolute freaking zoo situation, man. I mean, what does it mean? Even with the NFL and the NBA, you have players that are attracted to bigger cities, bigger endorsements, and things like that. And they have a draft to try to keep things close. Now, college has no draft, and players can choose where they want to go. If they want to go, say, hey, I want South Florida to win a championship, all the 5-star recruits can go to South Florida if somebody has the bank to pay them a little bit and do that. You know, and maybe it's all up to the players. I don't know. But the competitive landscape is what I'm worried about most, Brian. I'm thinking there's going to be a lot more shadiness going on and money coming in. There's going to be tax issues with it coming in. I wonder if the IRS is going to get more involved. Agents are just going to be clawing and fighting for these kids. I mean, if I'm a kid right now and I already declared, I'm putting myself back on the market just because I have to, just to double check. Doesn't mean I'm not going to go back to that school. But I am undeclaring right now with this rule change. I mean, there's just so much crazy stuff that can happen. Boosters are probably going to be setting up, Brian. I think a better way of doing it would have been, especially because there's no draft, is at least try to control it in a way that that you can have boosters put in a fund and they can pay the players like that equally somehow. At least that way, there isn't as much shadiness going on. And that way, maybe you can kind of even it out through a conference. A conference can have their own rules saying, oh, this player is only allowed $50,000 max. I don't know, but isn't the possibilities just seem kind of endless right now?
Yeah, and I don't know how they're gonna keep all that straight. It sounds like a big old headache to me. But just like it's a big old headache trying to, find recruiting improprieties, if you will. So, Who knows where college sports is going to be 15 years from now? I almost wish they would just break away from this corrupt ass NCAA organization, but I don't know. I don't know what the answer would be then. Like how you're gonna, what body of or what what governing body is going to make the rules, et cetera. So I don't know.
I'm finding corruption in the conferences themselves, not just the NCAA. You know, the heads of the conferences. A lot of that showed, I think.
Oh, that Pac-12 guy was in Larry Scott, who's out now. I mean, that guy's a flipping corrupt.
Yeah. Dude, and that stuff's been going on forever, and it's gotten worse and worse. It's all about money, and yeah, I'm happy that it's going to happen to players, but I'm very concerned about what's going to happen. You know, it's funny. I heard a funny scenario. I think it was on Pro Football Focus where they said, what if the Ivy League schools has the richest folks out there, the billionaires, and maybe they pump up Harvard, Yale, and start bringing some recruits to them. When all of a sudden you're seeing Yale and MIT football teams become the next Alabamas in about 5 years. I'm not sure.
You would think that their alum base would have the most cash. You would think that.
Yeah, and I rethought that, and I was like, well, it's not like there isn't money coming from all these major universities. You got to face it. There's multimillionaires from any of these universities just because there's been so many students that went to them. But I don't know. It's just so interesting to me, and I think the way that they're approaching it is sloppy, and they need to fix that. You can't have a draft. I mean, that's never going to happen. So I don't know. But that kind of piggybacks into my next question for you. There's been discussion about changing the playoffs to 12 teams, and maybe this feeds into it a little bit. Do you have any thoughts on doing that, and if that's overdue as well?
Yeah, I'm cool with it, but that's me being selfish. Like if I was a player, you know, obviously more games, more practice, more risk of injury. But now, hopefully, they're going to be getting paid, and they won't, and they'll be cool with it. Granted, it's only going to be a select amount of teams, and therefore players that have those extra games, et cetera. And you think they'll be glad to have them. But just from a selfish point of view, more games, more bets. More, it works for me, especially with the especially the way Saban's got that flipping dynamo of a program rolling. You know, more teams allowed, more chances for the Gators to get in. So yeah, it all works for me. But I mean, I can understand, you know, parents of athletes and there's other factors that I could see where people would not be as happy with it being a 12 team, but it all works for me. I love it.
Well, I think it's great. And I think it's great for schools like Florida, Miami, UCLA. Look at it this way. You know, there's 3 goals that you have as a 5-star athlete, right? 3 goals. The number 1 is getting to the NFL, no matter what. That's number 1. Number 2 is to win a national championship, for sure. And number 3 is to kind of play where your friends can go watch you, right? You know, how often does that number 3 make a player that says, I kind of have to go to Alabama here. I'm going to make more money getting into the NFL. I'm going to get into the playoffs, probably almost guaranteed. You know, my name's going to be in lights, you know. But now that kid might stay at Miami. He might stay at Florida, whatever Florida school. They might stay at Wisconsin. I don't know. But
There's no Florida school to talk about other than the Gators, bud.
I'm sure there's been some Gator recruits that lost to Alabama, and you know, it's just.
Oh yeah, no, I'm just talking about FSU and Miami.
I know.
Or Down.
I meant UCF. That's what I was talking about.
Right. No, they probably are the second best program.
Right now, man, last 5 years. Last 5 years. Well, no, but here's the thing: it's going to even out the competition, and I think that evens out the spreading out of the talent. I think the talent spreads out a little bit more because of it. Now players don't have to feel forced that they have to transfer to Alabama and do so. Now, don't get me wrong. I still think Saban's probably going to draw the best program, but it might thin out a little bit. And with the payments and everything else, local kids might want to stay a little bit closer. So I'm interested to see that. And yeah, there's selfish reasons too, but I think there's reasons for competition, and it kind of brings bias out of it as well. It's like between the 4th and 5th team, there's been a lot of controversy, you know. And, hopefully that wipes it away. But I don't want to see anybody with an 11 or 12 seed and complaining with the 13 seed on who's going to be there. I don't want to see any of that, man. I'm like, if you're that
13 and you don't get in, to hell with you, dude.
Yeah, exactly. Do your business. And if there's too many teams, though, it ruins the regular season. I love the college football regular season. So I think 8 to 12 is probably.
But I mean, I think it adds more to the regular season. Those 10 through 18 teams, numbers 10 through 18 are vying for those last couple of spots. So, I mean, I think it's going to add to the regular season.
Well, they should be anyway. I mean, they should be vying anyway to get to win their conference anyway. Yeah, that's the way I look at it. But those 10 to 18 teams, there's a point where Oklahoma might be like, I'm going to rest my guy because we haven't lost yet. I'm probably getting in. This game's not as big of a deal. Maybe that's good for gambling because maybe we can sniff out those spots a little bit. When a team might let down, kind of like in the pros.
But I mean, there's going to be like a bye though, so you got to be like in the top 4, right? I mean, I'm assuming that's going to be like if it's a 12 team, the top 4 would get buys, right?
Yeah, it would for sure.
Then you have 8 teams in the first round.
Yeah, I would, and I'd be totally cool with that. Whatever's going to get the kids to show up and play. That's important.
So, in other words, I'm saying like Oklahoma wouldn't want to rest their starters their last regular season game because just one loss could mean you don't get a bye.
Well, they might already have that loss and will be in with 2 losses. Just depending on the rankings. So I guess, and me and you are brainstorming. We didn't bring this up at all. This is kind of just like spitballing right here, but it's good stuff and it's good conversation, good to think about. But what else is good is talking about some season win totals, my man. And college, you're one of the earlier ones like me. You get right into it. And I've heard you a few times already say a few of them that you like. Why don't you give the audience one of the games or multiple ones that you like?
Well, I just got my Phil Steele mag on Friday, so I don't have a lot of them. But the one that really struck me right when the win totals came out was Boston College, which was a team that was good to me, really good to me last year. Now they only went 6-5, both straight up and against the spread. But I think I had them all 6 of those covers, and I'm trying. And actually, one of their non-covers was a push for me because I got them plus 14 against Notre Dame. Early that week. Now that line, ended up being like 11 and a half. Mm-hmm. But I got in on it Sunday, early Monday. And then, my huge bet really with them was Clemson. So you look at Boston College this year, the only game on the schedule that looks unwinnable is at Clemson. But, they had the lead at Clemson last year, a big chunk of that game, and only lost 34-28.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And, they had a loss to North Carolina where they cut it to 2 with, I want to say, like 45 seconds left. And they went for 2 and they had a pick 6 on the 2-point conversion. So you look at the score, they lost 26-22, but they easily covered and they were going for the tie there on a 2-point conversion. So they've got 9 starters back on offense, 8 on defense. They might have the best wide receiver in the ACC in Zay Flowers. 56 catches, 892 yards, 9 touchdowns last year. I love Phil Dracovic, transfer from Notre Dame, who he got hurt, so he only played 9 games last year. Or I'm sorry, 10 games. He missed the regular season finale. But he threw for 2,558 yards, 17-5 TDI-INT ratio. They've got all their receivers back. They did lose Hunter Long, a stud tight end. I want to say he went in like the 4th or 5th round of the draft. And they also lost their 2 leading tacklers, but they addressed some of that with some transfers. They've got hold on, I know I got it in my notebook here, so I was writing down a bunch of their transfer stats. Yeah, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. So they've got 7 transfers, and pretty much all of them have gotten considerable playing time in their previous schools. They've got Jaden Lars Woodbay, who was at FSU, has been starting since 2019. They got a couple of UMass transfers, got a pass rusher, and they got a running back as well. So look, but the main thing about this play is really the schedule. It's so soft. I mean, here's the non-conference: Colgate at home, at UMass, at Temple. I mean, Temple was pretty good 4 or 5 years ago when Matt Rule had it rolling, but Temple's way down now. They get Missouri at home. I would think that I haven't seen a line in games of the year for that, but I would think that would be like a pick 'em or, one team favored by 2 or 3. So that's a very winnable game. Again, at Clemson's really looks like the unwinnable, but then you look at the rest of their tough ACC games, and their toughest ones are at home: Virginia Tech, NC State, FSU, and Wake Forest. The road games being at Louisville, which I think is going to be way down. I mean, Satterfield had a good first year, but they were awful last year. They lost Javian Hawkins, their speedster running back. They lost Tutu Atwell and several starting receivers. And then they're at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is still down. And at the Cuse. And I love Dino. Loved him when he had Dungy, but I think Syracuse is going to suck again.
I'm afraid they are, man.
I think Dino's went into his last year, poor guy. He was great when he had Eric Dungy. But, yeah, man, I think BC wins 8 or 9 games. And I think he got one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I am concerned about their defense, but, that's Hafley's side of the ball, his area of expertise. And, he didn't have any spring ball and, it was his first year. And like I said, they got some transfers to kind of elevate that talent base on that side of the ball.
No, I don't disagree at all. As a matter of fact, I wanted to be on NC State because I thought they were going to kind of be the sneaker team, and I looked at their schedule, and it's brutal. I mean, brutal. They have some of the toughest teams.
Week 2.
What's that?
I see they have at Mississippi State week 2.
Yep. And if you look through regular season, I believe they got North Carolina. Let me just pull up their schedule.
I mean, they go at BC one week and then at Miami the next week. And Miami, October 23rd. I mean, if that's an afternoon game, October 23rd in Miami is like late August anywhere else in America. And they have 2 back-to-back road situations at FSU and at Wake Forest. In back-to-back weeks. And that was actually Boston College has 2 back-to-back road spots too, but the second game is at the Cuse and at Temple, so I'm not that worried about
that sets up perfectly. I mean, when you're NC State, you have North Carolina, which is the number 2 team in the whole ACC, at least ranked right now, and then you have Clemson. And then the SEC game at Mississippi State. The only one that you're really happy about is Furman. I suppose South Florida as well for the non-conference, but there's not enough meat on the bone for me to take that one. But I agree with you 100%. But I'm going to give you another one here from the ACC that I like, and it's not like something you're super excited about because this team was freaking terrible last year. But Duke's season win total is 3.5. Man, 3.5. And they were bad last year. They lost Chase Bryce to transfer, but I'm not even sure that's a bad thing because of how many interceptions he threw last year and how bad.
Where did he land at a Sun Belt school?
I think so. I think he transferred to was it like?
I think Jake Bentley landed at South Alabama. I think he's in the Sun Belt. Maybe
was it App State? Was it App State? No, App State's got their quarterback.
Oh, it might have been App State.
I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that. But what I do know is that Cutcliffe's, over his career, he's getting 7 wins, 5 wins, 6 wins. He's around that area, right? He's good with quarterbacks. And his season win total is 3.5. And if you look at their first 4 games, Brian,
it is out for Chase Bryce. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you. That one kind of rang a bell for me. At Charlotte, and they blew away Charlotte last year, so I think that's got to be a win. Then they have North Carolina A&T. That should be a win. They get
Kansas at home.
Yeah, Kansas at home, and Northwestern is a team that should be better than them. But they are dead last in returning production. The Wildcats of Northwestern, dead last. Those first 4 games right there, very possible they go over through their 3.5 right there. And that's even before they get into the ACC schedule here. Now,
when they get Georgia Tech at home and even Louisville at home on a short week, which is advantageous to the home team. What'd you say it was? 3.5?
3.5, man. I think I had to lay a little juice. I think I was minus 130, but I liked it and I hit it.
No, I that's sound reasoning. I mean, there's a lot of winnable games. That's a lot of winnable football games, right? And look, you've got debatably, one of the best coaches in the ACC without a doubt. Maybe. I mean, he's not better than Dabo, but
Right.
I love Cutcliffe.
Yeah, he always comes from left field too. He's kind of that guy's like you don't even think about him, and all of a sudden there he is right in your face here, winning a bunch of games. Georgia Tech, very winnable game. Pittsburgh's even somewhat winnable there. Louisville for sure, and then Miami's probably a loss at the end, but you never know what's going to happen. Yeah, very attainable to get over 4 wins, especially those first 4 games, man. I think that one stuck out to me. So sounds like we might have some agreement.
Yeah, I'm looking at how, you got to go look at all these teams because there's so many transfers coming into every school. They got a transfer from Notre Dame, one from Sparty, one from Pitt, and all those guys were 3-stars coming out of high school. They got some other transfers from some smaller schools. So, I don't disagree. A lot of winnable games for sure.
All right, sounds good. Let's move on to the SEC a little bit. I mean, obviously your Gators are in that conference here. Gators had a great season last year. I mean, God, that SEC championship game. Wow, you guys really hung with Bama there. You hung with Bama better than Ohio State hung with Bama that last game. And those were both championships.
I went to that game. We really were 2 clock management mistakes away from who knows. I mean, we had when Trask scored the touchdown there at the end of the first half with 55 seconds, maybe a minute left. There was 25 seconds left on the play clock. And Mullen should have been dripping that clock. And then, when we cut it to 52-44 and we had 3 timeouts left and he sends out the extra point team. And then all of a sudden before the play, he decides to call a timeout. Here we are, 7 months later. And the fact that thought process even went through Dan Mullen's mind scares the hell out of me. I mean, what are you flipping thinking? How could you make such an asinine decision to decide that in a game with a minute left or I think it was a minute 15, a minute 20, we got all 3 timeouts. I mean, if we get a 3 and out, we're going to get the ball with a minute left. And instead we got the ball with 17 seconds left and gave ourselves no chance because he wanted to go for 2 because the analytic guys say that it's best to go for 2 when you're down 8. Not with a minute 15 left when you're sacrificing a timeout to keep 40 seconds on the clock.
No.
I mean, are you shitting me? Now look, I like Dan Mullen. The Gators win a decade without touchdowns. I love touchdowns. I don't want him fired or anything, but after the game, he was asked about it, obviously, and he goes, "That was on me. That was my mistake." And then everybody would seem to be like, "Oh, he owned it." No, hell, he did not freaking own it. He didn't explain how the reason why it was on you is because all he said was, I should have known and been prepared to just go for 2 there. In other words, he didn't acknowledge that the reason it was such an unfathomable F up was that you don't sacrifice a timeout for going for 2 there. I mean, guess what? If we get the ball back and score a touchdown and we need to go for 2, we can go for 2 then.
Right. Didn't matter. Yeah, I remember that. He made a Kirby Smart decision. A Kirby Smart.
Yeah, or Mark Richt. Even the analytic guys, I'm sure, will tell you that their reasoning for that, and I don't subscribe to all the analytical when to go for 2 necessarily. I mean, I've known when to go for 2 since I was 6 years old. It's not very complicated. It doesn't take these algorithms and shit. I mean, you're fucking kidding me. So, Anyway, I would think that the analytic guys would at least say that you go from 8 to 6 in a situation like that. But when it's less than a minute and a half, and it comes down to even if you get the ball back or not, like it's useless. It's worthless.
You need the fucking ball back. It don't matter. And that's still one score. Yeah, it made no sense to me. Sorry, man. You seemed a little beaten up over that. I hope you got some sleep since the SEC championship.
I've been stewing over it for months.
Oh man. Hey, you know what though? I mean, fantastic season. What can you do? I mean, the bowl game sucked because everyone sat out, right? Pitt sat out, and I mean, there's nothing you can do. Once your leaders sit out, the rest of the team is kind of like they feel the vibe as well. So I mean,
yeah. And then Copeland got COVID. I mean, Copeland, when we lost Kadarius Toney and Pitts, which obviously I wanted them, I didn't want them to play. But then Copeland, who's going to have a huge season this year. I mean, he was our next best guy, and then he got COVID, and then I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get trucked.
Yeah. And then Oklahoma kind of they'll be walking into this year with that kind of good feeling about that one. So, speaking of the SEC, though, I mean, Bama, they always reload, of course, but yeah, I mean, how many years can they keep doing this here? Is Georgia a real threat to them this year? The thing about me is I'm kind of worried about Sarkisian being gone. Am I crazy?
No. I mean, there's some questions with Bama. I mean, anytime you're going to a new quarterback, but I mean, I didn't watch like their whole spring game, but I watched a little bit, and I saw the highlight breakdowns, and Bryce Young looks, in terms of his speed, quickness, elusiveness, he looks a lot like Jalen Hurts, and then it looks like he's got a better arm than Jalen. But I mean, we got to see that against live, defensive bullets before I have a strong opinion. And when they come to the Swamp, it will be his first career road start. It'll be a 3:30 Eastern kick in mid-September, September 18th, when it will be it'll feel 140 degrees on that field, and it'll be his first career road start, and that Swamp will be rocking. So, and Florida's defense, I mean, they can only be better. And we've added a couple of transfers to the D-line, one transfer from Auburn, one from West Virginia, and actually got another guy in the secondary from Missouri who can play nickel, safety, or corner. So I'm real optimistic about the Gators. I think Emory Jones is going to be good, but if he's not, that kid behind him, Anthony Richardson, I mean, I think he's going to be an absolute monster as well. But I think Emory will play well, and I think he'll use Richardson kind of like he used Emory with Franks and Trask. Let Richardson get a series in the first half, or definitely get a couple plays here and there. But if Emory falters, I think this Richardson kid is going to be a monster. So I feel good about Florida. I mean, we lost a lot of personnel at wide receiver, obviously, and I mean, that defense was so bad last year. But I mean, there were a lot of injuries. We got a lot of guys decide to come back for, sixth-year seniors, and Florida should be really good. We'll see. And one thing about Georgia that I'll say, I think JT Daniels has got a lot of off-season love, and I don't really get it. I mean, he only played 4 games. He had good stats, but it was against Mississippi State at home. They were favored by 25. They only won by 7. Then it was at South Carolina. Muschamp had already been fired. That was a garbage football team. Then they win big at Missouri, but Missouri had a bunch of COVID for that game. And then their offense didn't do anything against Cincinnati. And granted, Cincinnati's got one of the better defenses in the country last year, and I think they will this year. But I don't really get all the love for JT Daniels. And George Pickens, their star wide receiver, tore his ACL in the spring. And they only have 4 starters coming back on defense. And Kirby's not a very good game coach. So now I know they're loaded with talent because he's recruited, almost as good as Saban and Ryan Day, or maybe as good as Ryan Day. And I would say their recruiting classes are definitely in the top 3 or 4 in the nation the last, 3 to 5 years.
I actually averaged the 3 years before, 2018, 2019, and 20. I don't count 21 here because in most cases, those kids ain't seen the field, So, I mean, Alabama ranks 2.66 3-year recruiting, Clemson 6.66, Georgia 1.33. I mean, that's how good they've recruited in 2018, 2019, 2020. Florida's 10.66, and I'm using the 24/7 rankings. So, yeah, I mean, Georgia, as far as recruiting, has been fantastic. Now, they've had a few transfers come and go, too. And I don't know if 24/7 tracks that completely. I think they do a little bit. But, I mean, I agree with you. JT Daniels, I didn't like JT Daniels back in the USC days, really, you know. And I think there's some flaws in his game. And if it's straight up them against Alabama, I'm taking Alabama all day, even with a new quarterback and Bryce Young. So I agree, but you're not going to find any value on them. So, you know.
Yeah, with all that said, now Georgia's really only got 3 losable games on their schedule. I mean, Clemson, Florida, and Jacksonville, and then at Auburn. I mean, everything else, they should be favored by perhaps as many as 17 points in all 9 other games.
Is Auburn going to be that good this year?
No, I'm not saying Auburn's going to be that good, but Bo Nix, Patrick's son, Bo Nix is a really good quarterback at home. He's an abysmal quarterback on the road, and you just never know what's going to happen on the plains. So, I mean, that's potentially losable. I mean, Tank Bigsby is very good. No, look, Georgia's a lot better than Auburn, but it's a road game.
Right,
you never
right.
know.
Not very true. Very true. Well, you know, real quick, Big Ten wise, I'm not done doing all my research, but I'm seeing Illinois with 3.5 wins with a brand new coach in good old Brett Bielema. And you wouldn't believe how
Bielema, right?
he was a very disliked Wisconsin coach when he was there. I met him a few times back in Madison, and let's just say that he's not a fan favorite. And I think a lot.
Just like for his personality, it couldn't have been for his W's and losses because it was great, right?
He was feeding off the old Barry Alvarez teat, if you know what I'm saying. I think a lot of that was him, and I think his coordinator was Paul Chryst at the time. You know, I think he was very fraudulent. I think that should have showed when he went to Arkansas, right? And
he didn't have his young wife yet, did he? Or did he only have her like the last year or two? It was
he acted like he didn't. I don't know if he was married at the time. I can't remember, but I mean, him going to Illinois. I'm not sure a lot of players respect him. As a matter of fact, just announced today there are 6 transfers, players from Illinois that went to the transfer protocol. Now, I looked them all up today, and none of them were listed to start. But these are like, you know, sophomore type kids, and they were all 3-star recruits. I mean, that's going to hit the depth of Illinois a little bit. And I look at Illinois' schedule here, and I only see one winnable game for sure. And I'll tell you why here. Let me pull it up here for the
no, they get Charlotte and UTSA.
See, here's the thing. I'm not convinced that they'll beat UTSA because I looked at UTSA. They're ranked They're going to be ranked second here in Conference USA behind UAB. They're returning a ton of production. I'm not convinced that's a win. I'll give them a half win for that. And yeah, of course, I'm going to give them Charlotte. But at Virginia, not so sure about that. Probably a loss. Maryland's going to be a better team this year. And if you remember, Maryland was able to put up a few points last year. They just need to get it together on defense. You know Rutgers is going to be better with Schiano there. They've been stealing recruits left and right over the last couple years. Versus Wisconsin's a loss. At Penn State's a loss. At Purdue is a loss. At Minnesota's a loss. At Iowa's a loss. And the very end, Northwestern is going to be either getting from 2 to 3 and maybe 3 to 4, but I don't think they win that game anyway. So I'm kind of looking on the Illinois under, my man. And you know what? It's a honeymoon year for Bert. He's going to be fine.
Yeah, I see UTSA's got like every starter back except one and only lost 9 Letterman and went 7-5 last year.
They had some injuries last year to quarterback too, and
they lost a 1-possession game to Napier's Ragin' Cajuns, and we all know those Ragin' Cajuns are good. Watch out, Week 1 Texas Longhorns. Watch out.
There you go. And I'll give you a little wink about UTSA because there might be a future involved when some of those odds come out a little bit later in some of these books. So I'm keying in on that. But I'll take Illinois under 3.5.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Sincere McCormick. Yeah, did he lead the nation in rushing? I know he led part of the year last year.
I don't know. I'd have to look it up. I didn't see the final results. Or
He was leading for a good chunk of the year. I don't know if he was in the end, but
yeah, no, Sincere was awesome, right? And yeah,
great name.
Yeah, very, very good name, very cool name, very unique. So that's my thoughts. But we have a few minutes left here, and so I need to, Brian Edwards. I look at you as one of the UFC betting gurus, my man, and I'm so happy you're on this show because we have a big UFC event coming up. It's not this weekend, but it is the following weekend, UFC 264, where Conor McGregor gets his rematch against Dustin Poirier. And I kind of thought that he didn't deserve the initial rematch personally. I kind of thought that Gaethje or somebody should have been able to fight Poirier. Either way, here we are. And the main event, you look at the odds on this one. I'm just at bestfightsodds.com. MGM's got them even -110. FanDuel -110. DraftKings leaning to McGregor. William Hill, of course, leaning to McGregor at -115. Have you any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I've already bet a little bit on Poirier. I'm probably going to bet more about, like with Conor fights, I kind of always want to wait. I feel like Conor always gets some late action, and maybe on the day of the fight, or maybe in the couple of days before the fight, we might be able to get Dustin around +125, +130. So I just got a little nibble of it so far. What was Marvin Hagler's old quote? It's hard to get up and run at 5 a.m. when you're sleeping in silk sheets. McGregor rolled up to Fight Island to fight Poirier. When was it? In January, and he rolled up in like a 400-foot yacht, with the kids in tow. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like
skinny suit on.
It's really difficult to be a savage when you've got hundreds of, or I don't know how many millions he's got. Look, if I had 1 million in the bank, and I'm not a savage with whatever I have in the bank now. I mean, can you imagine like having tens and tens of millions and wanting or not being worried about getting your mouth and your head busted up? I mean, I just don't think Conor's got it anymore. And that's not a knock on him. He was a savage coming up, and he earned every penny of that money he's got. And, but now Dustin's made some money here too. But I just think Dustin is so good right now. I mean, his fights are here. Let me look at his fights. I mean, going back really, other than the Khabib fight, and look, he went 3 rounds with Khabib, and he touched him up a little bit early second and early third. And remember, he had that guillotine there for like a good 45 seconds, and Rogan thought it was really tight. Obviously, he wasn't able to finish it, and then when Khabib got out, he like submitted him like 5-10 seconds later. But Dustin
Khabib was pissed when that happened.
Yeah. He was pissed when he got out of there. But you look at Dustin's fights recently. Okay, he takes some big shots from Conor in round 1, and then he's landing the leg kicks. And
I had Conor winning the fight at round 1. I think I can't remember.
Yeah, I thought round 1 was Conor also.
Yeah,
I thought round 1 was Conor, and then you go back Hooker. I mean, he brutalized Dan Hooker in rounds 3 through 5. Max Holloway had won 12, 13 fights in a row. I know he went up in class, went up a division. But, Dustin totally outclassed Max standing up. I don't care if he's a division higher than him. That is extremely impressive. And then, before that, he destroyed Eddie Alvarez. And he beat Justin Gaethje, who is just an absolute savage. So, I mean, Dustin's form that he has been in for like 4 solid years now has just – the only person that has touched him – it is Khabib, right? I'm trying to think his last loss. Oh, the last loss besides Khabib, I believe, was Michael Johnson, and Michael Johnson got a first-round knockout. But Michael Johnson's got great hands. I mean, he can. There's no shame in that, really. I know Johnson's struggled and lost a lot of fights lately, but Just Dustin's in great form right now. And look, I mean, look, I won't be shocked. I wouldn't put it past Conor to have a masterful performance and win in round one. But the longer this fight goes, it favors Dustin. He took some of Conor's best shots. I like Dustin.
You like Dustin, yeah. Yeah, Conor was fantastic. And you know what? The guy markets himself well. And I think his Irish backing, those guys, his fans help market him well. And his cockiness, it just kind of feeds into why he's the highest paid fighter. And it's not just obviously UFC, it's also a bunch of endorsements. But the truth is what I did see with Conor is that he is getting a little bit dizzier, as he gets older. His jaw is not quite as good as it was. And I think we found out he was dazed after Poirier hit him a couple soft times. I didn't even think they're that hard of hits. And I think Poirier knows that. I think Poirier knows he's got the advantage. Conor's going to have to go in like an absolute psycho to beat him. And I think Poirier probably expects it. And even money right now, my money's on Poirier. I didn't bet it, but I am considering it. And you know what? The thing is, if you like Poirier, I think you wait. I think you wait because the Conor McGregor is that money's gonna come in and it's gonna push it all the way up to -140. There's gonna be people that are saying the last fight was Conor -200. This is a deal you're getting, without even thinking about the metrics between the fighters themselves. You see that all the time.
Conor's, personally, I think Chael might be a better shit talker, but Chael didn't have the wins and the knockouts to go with it. So Conor's the best shit talker just because he's backed it up. And so I'm telling you, I fell for it last fight. I'm ashamed to say it, but I ended up betting on Conor.
I did too. I did too.
And
I fell for it too.
And I let him talk me into it the week of the fight. I let him talk me into it. And so to your listeners that are bettors, don't fall for it because he will talk you into believing he's going to win this fight, but I really don't think he does. I mean, he can win it, certainly. He's still got a ton of power in that left hand, and he's still got great skills, but I don't think he's got the chin anymore. And I think Dustin wins, but don't let him talk you into it. I fell for that freaking last time, and I'm so ashamed that I did that because I've been backing Dustin like 8 fights in a row, probably.
Yeah, right. And does the winner fight Oliveira, or is he matched up already?
Well, they haven't really. Yeah, I mean, probably.
Yeah,
probably.
I would think so.
They haven't officially said it.
Yeah, it would be them or Gaethje, I guess, but we'll see. Anything else in the? I know it's way early, and thank you for talking about it. Did anything else in the cards stick out to you? Because I have one that I do want to ask you about.
Go ahead and ask me.
All right. Well, it's here's something that I found. I think I found some weakness in the undercard. I think anybody that wants to get an advantage, you probably should start in the undercard when it comes to your sports betting, and I think there's the most value in it. And a fight that I found here, I believe that the dog is.
Oh my God! I bet you're going to Carlos Condon, aren't you? And that plus 160. No, okay,
I'm not. I'm not. I'm going with Omari Akhmedov versus Brad Tavares. And Akhmedov right now. Let me just quick find it here. I thought I saw plus 145 at William Hill, plus 146 at FanDuel, BetMGM plus 145, DraftKings plus 135. He's plus money here. And I look at his opponent in Brad Tavares, and I'm like, what did Brad Tavares do? I mean, nothing. Dude, he hasn't beaten anybody with a pulse. All the guys he's beat is like tier 3 dudes, right? And of course he went to the distance with the style bender, but so does everybody. I mean, that's how Adesanya fights, right? And then the key thing for me is one of the most overrated fighters and overhyped fighters that came through the last year was Edmund Shabazian. And Edmund beat his ass. And Edmund has a very small bone structure for his size, my man. I look at
Edmund didn't just beat his ass. Edmund just walked through him like easily. And I had Shabazian. He's got the worst coach, but I had him. I had him that night with the KO prop at plus money. I might have even gotten a little of the first round. And Shabazian's did he lose after he got killed by Brunson? Did his last fight get canceled, or did he lose that?
Oh no, he got his butt kicked. Well, I wouldn't say he was pretty beat up against Jack.
Oh, that's right.
Jack
It was a
Hermanson.
decision, but he got his ass beat, right?
Yeah, Jack Hermanson. Yeah. Jack handled him pretty good. Jack's, a borderline tier 2, tier 1 fighter in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I would think after that loss, they would have given Shabazian somebody easier than Hermanson. I mean, Hermanson just won like 7 in a row. I know it got snapped like a year and a half ago, but he had been on a nice run there for a while.
I think so too.
They
But
need to get Shabazian somebody like unranked and build him back up a little bit.
Let his confidence come back. But the point is, Omari Akhmedov, you look at him, he against Marvin Vettori, he drawed against Marvin. And Marvin's a damn good fighter. We just saw him against Adesanya, but Adesanya is a different animal. And
by the way, let me time out here. I was drunk at the, because I go to the bar and watch the pay-per-views, and so I wasn't sober. I haven't watched that fight sober, but I was floored that with the 50-40, I thought that fight was really close. Am I wrong?
No, you weren't freaking wrong at all. I mean, he's the one that took.
I thought Vettori had at least 2 rounds.
Dude, me too. He controlled the fight. He was actually the guy. He was the aggressor in the fight.
I was shocked.
I know. Oh, dude, and then
50-45 twice and 149-46, or was it all 50-45?
It was all. It was all third. It was all 10-9. It was 50 straight up to 45. It was every single.
All
round.
3 judges.
Yep, all 3.
That is flipping insane. I
agree.
thought that was a really close fight.
I agree. I thought it was way closer, and I was on the dog Vettori. I mean, he was +3. It was +220, and he fought better than +220. I don't care what anybody says about that.
And that's another thing. I didn't even have Vettori. I had the prop for Izzy to win by KO. I wasn't rooting for Vettori. I just thought it was I thought the fight was close as hell.
Hey, preaching to the choir, man. I totally agree. But going back to this fight here, Omari, just the fact that he went that far with Vettori, which you just backed me up here saying that he's pretty much a badass. He beat Ian Heinich as well, and Ian's a badass. He did lose to Chris Weidman, but that was in the distance. He's beaten much better fighters than Tavares.
Yeah, and I mean, you can get beat by Weidman if you get into a wrestling match.
Yeah.
Before the leg injury, obviously. I mean, Weidman, I know Weidman was only like 2-4 or 2-5 before the leg injury. He was fighting nothing but the top 3 guys, every time.
Oh, yeah. Souza, Dominic Reyes, Uriah Hall. Yeah, absolutely, man. He beat Gastelum. I mean, Weidman was always a tough out for anybody. But this Brad Tavares is complete fake news here, and I am shocked that he is favorite, and he hasn't beaten anybody here. He's been KO before, he's been decision. The one thing he hasn't been is submitted, but in my opinion, you're getting a price with Omari Akhmedov here. And even if you look at the stats here, Omari, they're about equal in significant strikes, but the takedown average, 2.63 to 0.97 per 15 minutes. The takedown accuracy is higher. You're getting a deal.
No, I agree with you. I lean your way. Yeah, and Tavares is he's been around, man. I mean, he's only 33, but I think he's an old 33. He's been fighting for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. Both of them are 33. I think just you have the better all-around fighter here, and I think the wrong fighter's favored. If I was setting the line, I'd put Omari minus 160. Maybe more, so I'm going to take that one early. And I think if, some other, this could go down if some other sharp people are thinking the same as what we are right now.
Yeah. And, Condit, man, I'll probably be on Condit. I'm not
Okay.
a huge opinion. I mean, and look, his, with Matt Brown winning the other day, or what was that last weekend? That, kind of adds a little extra shine to Carlos's win against him. I know Carlos had been on a long losing streak, but kind of like I was saying with Weidman, I mean, Carlos was fighting nothing but killers, and he got robbed in that Lawler fight. He should have been the champion.
Mm-hmm.
And I had money on Lawler that night, so I was fine with the decision. Those are 2 of my all-time favorites, and that fight, Lawler-Condit, is one of my all-time favorite fights, easily in the top 10, probably top 5.
That was back in 2016, man. So, wow. Yeah, he's fighting Max Griffin here. And, dude, I mean, Condit's his last 2 losses were Chisa and Oliveira, dude. I mean, tough guys, right? And then Manji, and then Damian Maya, right? Holy cow! I mean, he's fought in top competition here. So this line was probably more based upon these 2 records, because just like the last fight, Max Griffin hasn't beaten anybody either. Maybe if you call Mike Perry somebody, I don't. At one time I thought
not anymore.
No,
at one time, but Mike Perry is nothing now.
Yeah, for sure. So Condit's a sneaky one too. I'll dig a little bit more into Condit before I make a perfect decision, but I can see myself going one way on Condit, if not the other, right?
Condit's gotta have a. So I'm looking at Griffin's 5. Oh, Condit's only 6'1". Seems like he's a lot taller than that. Yeah. But he's definitely the bigger guy. I mean, I know he's not that thick because he's so long, but yeah, I like Condit there a little bit. He's built himself back up with a couple of wins, got his confidence back. I think he'll beat Griffin.
All right, my man. Well, we're out of time, Brian. Really appreciate you coming on the show today. Where can our listeners and viewers find your great information and plays?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter at Vegas B Edwards is the handle, and then my content at majorwager.com. You can buy all my picks at vegasinsider.com or brianedwardsports.com. And I'm doing a podcast twice a week with the A to Z sports guys out of Nashville at 2 Central every Tuesday and Friday. So I usually retweet it, or you can go to the A to Z Sports. It's like A, the letter TOZ Sports.
Is that how you spell it, Brian?
Yeah, A to Z, but not the number 2. The letter T-O.
I'm just giving you shit.
I know you are. Yeah, so I appreciate you having me, man. Always fun. And have a good week, and go Hawks, brother.
All right, go Hawks. Thanks so much to Mr. Brian Edwards. Make sure you guys check him out. And if you have any other questions about any games, any fights coming up, feel free to tweet us at the Odds Breakers. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy 4th of July weekend. Don't burn your hands off or house down or whatever. And go.
Don't Michael. Jason. Don't Jason Pierre-Paul your hand.
Don't JPP your hand, and go get some winners.